I thought that I'll just start with a quick, interesting anecdote to lift up your mood for the last talk of the day. So the anecdote is as follows. The problem that had been solved by Ifan in the last talk and the result that I'm going to present to you now. These problems are some of the problems I have tried during my PhD days back in 2010. Of course, I made some progress and got protocols which are up to quadratic time. And you can see after 14 years, we're back again. And from quadratic, we got the linear time solutions. So in this one, I'm going to present the perfect solution. And in the previous talk, you have seen the solution for statistical case. Okay, so that just tells me that you should have you should keep adding your dream problems, and if you can't solve some problem at some point of time, just don't get disheartened. At some point of time in your life, you'll be able to solve them. All right. So thanks for the introduction, Pehan. And this talk is on perfect asynchronous MPC with linear communication overhead. And this is a joint work with Itai, Gilad, and Shravani. So, as you have already understood, our concern is the communication complexity of multi-party computation. And as many of you know, that communication is an expansive resource in distributed computation and cryptography. And as a result, a huge amount of research has been devoted towards obtaining communication efficient protocols and proving the lower bounds and etc. And in this work, we consider the communication complexity of two vital primitives. One is multi-party computation, and the other one is verifiable secret sharing. So I'm going to define MPC. All of you know what MPC is. So MPC has been studied in various settings over the years based on the network, adversary, and the security that we consider. So as for the network, we can consider a synchronous and asynchronous network. As for the adversary is considered concerned with, we can consider an adversary which is computationally unbounded, or it can be computationally bounded. In an orthogonal direction, we can consider an adversary which is passive or active. In terms of security, we can ask for information theoretic security or computational security. And of course, we can ask for abort or full security. So in this work, we consider asynchronous network as opposed to the synchronous network, which is typically the popular choice. Adversary, we consider an unbounded powerful adversary, which is active and rushing. And naturally, we get information theoretic security. And in fact, the security that we get is perfect. That is information theoretic security without error. And this is the difference with the previous talk. In the previous talk, it was information theoretic security with error, statistical security. Okay? And of course, we look for full security, which means that no matter how the adversary behaves, all the parties are going to get the output. Okay, so let's look at the differences between synchronous and asynchronous network. And this is where I don't mind Ifan eating up some of my time because he has already set the stage for me. So let's just quickly recall again what he said. So in the synchronous setting, all the messages sent between honest parties arrive with some known bounded delay delta. So this delta is known to everybody. And in practice, how do you set this delta? So we set it large enough, which is sort of maximum of all the delays possible over all the channels in the network, right? And if this delta is too large, then you know the protocol is going to be inefficient and slow, right? Whereas if you take delta to be too small, then it can happen that we will lose security, or even it can lead to non-termination of the protocol, right? In the asynchronous setting, every message sent between the honest parties would arrive after some finite yet unknown delay. So we don't know what is the delay, but it's finite, right? So that means that if an honest party sends a message to another honest party, it will be eventually received by that honest party. So we have this eventuality guarantee. So the adversary can delay the messages between honest parties, but those messages must be eventually delivered. Okay. So in practice, if you have small delays for your channels, then most likely the protocols will run in a very faster speed. Okay. So you don't have to wait for the delta for every round. You are progressing as soon as you are receiving the messages. So it runs in real time. It's also known that asynchronous networks model the real-level networks like internet in a much better way than the synchronous network. And that is why such networks are interesting to study. So there are a couple of popular statements about synchronous as well as asynchronous protocols. The first one is about asynchronous MPC protocol. So asynchronous MPC is much faster than synchronous MPC protocols, in particular when the protocol has many number of communication rounds. It's understandably so, because in the synchronous network, the protocol operates in terms of rounds, and every round is delta long, right? So no matter whether you receive most of the messages or not, you have to wait for delta time. So this is why asynchronous MPC protocols would run faster when the round complexity of the protocols are higher. On the other hand, it is also known so far that synchronous MPC has higher security and has less communication than asynchronous MPC. Okay? I'll just show why it is, the known synchronous protocols are faster or better in terms of communication complexity compared to the asynchronous protocols with the state of the art in a couple of slides. So what we do is, of course, we are designing protocols in asynchronous networks. So we want to ride on the first advantage, the advantage given by the first statement, right? And for the second one, we want to mend the situation. That is, we want to somehow improve the gap between synchronous and asynchronous protocols. Okay? We want to make the asynchronous protocols as good as the synchronous protocols. So that is what the goal is. And I'll come to what is the result of this paper in a minute. Meanwhile, let's just see the resiliency that is required by asynchronous MPC protocols and the synchronous MPC protocols, right? With, of course, optimal resiliency. So we want to check the optimal resiliency. So this, this is the famous BGW paper, which says that any function f can be computed with perfect security in the presence of t less than n by 3 corruptions. So t less than n by 3 is what you require for synchronous MPC. On the other hand, if you go for asynchrony, then that's the difference. The same task you can achieve only with lower threshold, lower resiliency, which is t less than n by 4 now. Okay. So at a very high level, the reason why we require more number of honest parties in the system for asynchronous network is that in asynchronous network, an honest receiver cannot distinguish between a slow sender and a corrupt sender. Okay? So because of this inherent issue, this is not there in the synchronous network, because if a receiver doesn't receive some message from a sender within delta time, then it can tell that, okay, that sender is the corrupt party. It can tell it for sure. Whereas the same thing cannot be concluded in the asynchronous network. So the receiver is confused whether the sender is honest but slow or the sender is corrupt. Because of this issue, you can see that there is already a difference in terms of resiliency. Now let's come to the known gap in the communication complexity between these two classes of protocols, synchronous and asynchronous. So in case of synchronous world, you can see that linear complexity had been achieved long ago, right? In 2008. So that's when the linear communication complexity MPC had been achieved in the synchronous setting. And recently, we have actually given another linear protocol where the round complexity is order of D, where D is the depth of the circuit, whereas all the earlier protocols took order of D plus n number of rounds, where n is the number of parties. Now, coming to the asynchronous network, this is a long chain of work. Started with the BCG is the first paper, the one that I have just shown you in the previous slide, that introduced asynchronous MPC. The communication complexity was pretty high. It was n power 6 by multiplication. Then it was improved to n power 5, n cubed, and the last work actually gave a quadratic time, and happy to be part of that work as well, in 2010. Okay, and as you can see, there's this gap. In synchronous network, you have the linear time protocol back in 2008, and for asynchronous network, there wasn't any linear time protocol so far. So a big question is there a perfectly secure, optimally resilient asynchronous MPC with linear communication complexity? And in this work, we solve this problem. In fact, we solve this, it's a positive result. So we give a protocol which gives the linear communication complexity. This is the exact theorem that we have proved, and as you can see, the time required is also nice, which is order of D, expected time, and D is the depth of the circuit. Okay. So at a very high level, so I'm going to just give you some ideas that we have used to come up with the protocol. At a very high level, we follow the following structure, which again, probably you can see similarity with the previous work, previous talk. So the goal is to generate Beaver triples, right? A, B, and C in shared format, where A and B are random and unknown to the adversary, and C is the product of A and B, right? And then we want to consume these Beaver triplets in the online phase in a standard way to evaluate the multiplication gates. So that's the high-level idea. Now, to generate the Beaver triplets, we use the following thing, and this is actually, again, it comes from another work of mine, where we reduce generating the Beaver triplets to generating multiplication triplets with the help of a dealer. So here there's a specific party D which wants to share these triples ABC, and these ABC are random and unknown to the adversary only when the dealer is honest. Otherwise, it will be known to the, of course, dealer is corrupted, so it knows the triple. Now, this problem further boils down to two primitives. The first one being asynchronous VSS. This is to share the three values A, B, and C. And the other building block is new to this work, which we call it as weak binding AVSS. Okay, so this primitive is needed to prove that C is equals to A dot B, because a corrupt dealer may not share a correct triple, correct multiplication triple. So we have to introduce a proof technique which would make the dealer prove that indeed C is equals to AB. And for this, we need another form of secret sharing, which is called weak binding AVSS. As the name says, it's a weaker version of AVSS, and I'll tell you what that is in a minute. Now, in order to get our linear complexity protocol, we need the following complexities from this underlying building blocks. So the AVSS we need, it requires order of n cost per secret. Okay. However, this was already there in the previous works. This is not our contribution. For the weak binding secret sharing, we need even stricter requirement. We require an order of 1, that is constant overhead per secret. Okay, so this is what we do in this work, and for doing this, for enabling this, we actually shift to a trivariate polynomial, whereas people have been using bivariate polynomials, and nobody probably have thought that trivariate polynomial has more power than bivariate polynomials, but it seems so. Okay, so let me quickly tell you what the definition of AVSS is just to distinguish what weak binding AVSS is. So, in a asynchronous AVSS protocol, there is a sender and it has two phases, sharing and reconstruction. And as usual in the sharing phase, the dealer shares the secret amongst the parties. And in the reconstruction phase, the secret needs to be reconstructed from the shares. Okay, that's the normal structure of any secret sharing protocol. Now, the properties that we require are as follows. First one is validity, which means that if the dealer is honest, basically everything should be fine, meaning that the protocol must terminate, and at the end of the reconstruction phase, all the parties must reconstruct the dealer's secret. Right? Secrecy, of course, it is usual again. The view of the adversary in the sharing phase should be independent of the secret. Yes, that's the requirement. And lastly, this is the binding, the most important property, and this must hold good even though the dealer is corrupt. So what is the requirement? It says that the view of the honest parties at the end of the sharing phase must uniquely define a secret, and the same secret must be reconstructed in the reconstruction phase. So this must hold good even though the dealer is corrupt. There must be a unique secret which should be defined by the shares of the honest parties in the end of the sharing phase, and that should be reconstructed in the reconstruction phase. Now, in the weak binding AVSS, the only difference that we require is in the binding property, which is now weak binding. Okay, and by weak binding, what I mean is the following: that the reconstruction of the unique secret need not be reconstructed. So you still require that the view of the honest parties at the end of the sharing phase should uniquely define some secret, right? But we relax the reconstruction condition. That is, the secret need not be reconstructed robustly. It's fine not to, not to be able to reconstruct that committed secret. So that is what we mean by weak binding. So I want to tell you how we have designed that constant rate. If you recall again, for our linear time protocol, we need a constant rate AVSS, weak AVSS, and that's what we want to design. So at a very high level, I have to actually quickly recall the skeleton for the BCG AVSS, asynchronous VSS, because our starting point is also the same. So in BCG style AVSS, what happens is, of course, you have a dealer and the dealer has a secret. And to share the secret, the dealer would plant the secret in a bivariate structure. Namely, it will put it in the constant term of the bivariate polynomial, S of 0, 0. The bivariate polynomial is of degree at most t in both x and y. And this is how the parties get their shares. The first party receives S of x comma 1 and S of y 1 comma y. Basically, the row polynomial and the column polynomial of the bivariate. I'll just tell you, give you the view of the bivariate polynomial, and then I'll tell you a different way of seeing these shares. The second party receives the same bivariate polynomial evaluated at x equals to 2 and y equals to 2. And likewise for all the remaining parties. So this is the way you can view the bivariate polynomial in a matrix form. Right? It's a square matrix, so you evaluate from 1, 1 to nn. Right? And if you look at carefully, the first party actually receives the first row and the first column. Second party receives the second row and the second column, and the ith party receives the ith row and the ith column. Okay? That's how the distribution happens. And the goal essentially is to share the secret S through this univariate polynomial, which is S of 0 comma y. This is a t degree polynomial, and if you look at the constant term of this univariate polynomial, it's nothing but the secret S. Right? So that's the goal. Now, of course, the dealer can be bad and may not share the secret, the shares exactly the way I have mentioned. So for that, you need verification. done by the parties, right? So if you look carefully, every pair of parties, they share 2 points. For instance, if you look at the first two parties, P1 and P2, they actually have these 2 points as common, S of 2, 1 and S of 1, 2. So in order to verify whether the shares has been received correctly or not, these parties are going to exchange these points with each other, and then they're going to check with respect to the polynomials that they have received from the dealer whether these points are correct or not, right? They match or not. So if the match happens, then they're going to broadcast okay, otherwise not okay, right? So between every pair of parties, this consistency check happens, and based on that, this broadcast of okay happens. Now, from this okay broadcasts, the parties are going to come up with a graph at a very high level. In this graph, the parties are the nodes. So you have n nodes, and you add an edge between a pair of parties only when you listen okay from both the parties for each other. So there is an edge. If there is an edge between Pi and Pj, then Pi must have okayed to Pj, and Pj must have okayed to Pi, both way. Okay. Now, after this graph is formed, at a high level, what they do is they try to agree on a n minus t clique, n minus t size clique. Okay. So n is the number of parties and t is the corruption, maximum possible corruption. So they try to reach agreement on a n minus t clique. And of course, this works. Why? Because n minus t clique has n minus 2t honest parties, which in this case is already 3t plus 1. Right? No, it's already 2t plus 1. Right? So n is 4t plus 1 for our case because we are in the asynchronous network. So even though we are talking about n minus 2t honest parties, which means 2t plus 1 honest parties. And all of them are pairwise consistent with each other, right? So that means their polynomials defining unique polynomial, a bivariate polynomial of degree t in both x and y. So at a high level, this is why it works. But if you look at the cost of this protocol, this is order of n power 4 for one secret. One secret is because we have planted just one secret in the constant term of the bivariate structure. And it's n power 4 is because there are n square number of broadcasts that had been done, okays and not okays, right? And each broadcast actually requires order of n square point-to-point communication. So it's in total n power 4 cost. So that's pretty bad. Recall our goal, we want constant overhead, and this is n square overhead. So, and also there's another problem. This is inefficient, right? So it says that, we are talking about n minus t size clique. That's a hard problem, right? So this is inefficient. I'll deal with that a little later, the inefficiency. But again, this protocol at a very high level, it satisfies all these properties that I have mentioned for AVSS, binding, validity, and termination. Binding, again, because there are 2t plus 1 honest parties in the clique, and they define uniquely one bivariate polynomial of degree t in both x and y. So towards getting a constant overhead protocol, we use two techniques, the first one being packing and the other one being batching. Packing, through packing, what we suggest is that in one instance of AVSS, where you use one bivariate polynomial, right? Instead of packing just one secret, pack more secrets. Okay? So, and in order to pack, as you have already seen in the previous talk, we have to increase the degree. Right? So make the degree of the bivariate to t plus, let's say, t by 2 in both the dimension, x and y. Okay? Then what happens is you can pack order of n square secrets in one bivariate structure. The other idea is batching, where the idea is to sort of amortize over the cost of broadcast for many instances. So we want to run many AVSS instances, and for all of them, the broadcasts that we require are going to be common. Right? So we won't broadcast for each and every instance, but we will do one set of broadcasts for all the AVSS instances. Okay, so for instance, we can run n square instances in parallel, and then we can use a common broadcast for all. And using these two ideas, we'll get this. The first one is the non-trivial technique. The second one, batching, is more standard. Okay? So let's see how we can pack in our context. So what I have done is I have gone back to the BCG style protocol, the same skeleton that I have shown you. And I have just increased the degree of the bivariate in both the dimension, x and y. So now the degrees are t plus t by 2 in both the x and y dimensions. Okay. Now let's run the same protocol that we have seen. So as usual, the dealer is distributing, the parties are doing pairwise checks, and then they're saying broadcasting OKs, and based on the OKs, consistency graph is made, and then a clique is agreed upon of size n minus t, right? The same thing. Does it work? It works again. That's because in the clique, you have 3t plus 1 parties in which 2t plus 1 are honest parties, right? And they would define a bivariate polynomial of degree t plus t by 2 in both the dimensions. Because you have enough, sufficient number of honest parties, 2t plus 1 honest parties. So the inefficient technique actually works, but of course we cannot live with inefficient solutions. We have to get an efficient solution or polynomial time solution. So let's go back to BCG. How did they get a polynomial time protocol? So what actually they have suggested is that instead of a clique, look for an alternative structure which is called a star. Okay. The star has basically two set of nodes C and D. The C part is nothing but a smaller clique than the earlier case. Earlier we were looking for 3t plus 1 size clique, right? Now we'll be looking for just 2t plus 1 size clique, which is C. And the other component D is actually a superset of C. And the requirement is that the parties between C and D, they are connected. They are pairwise consistent. That's star. And BCG actually shows how to find out a star in polynomial time if a graph already has a clique. So they have shown a polynomial time solution to find out this nice graph structure. So basically in their protocol, instead of a clique, they agree on a C comma D star. And it was fine for their case because their bivariate polynomial was of degree t in both x and y. And if you look at C, C has 2t plus 1 parties in which t plus 1 are honest, right? So they would still define a bivariate polynomial of degree t in both x and y. So for their case, it was fine. However, if you move to our case now, where the bivariate has an increased degree, it's not t anymore, it's t plus t by 2, then the same argument doesn't work. Because C doesn't have enough number of honest parties. C has only t plus 1 honest parties, and our degree, the degree of our bivariate polynomial is t plus t by 2. Okay? So it doesn't work, but what seems to work is a big star. What is big star? The only difference with star being that C is a clique of bigger size. It's no longer 2t plus 1 as before. Now we are asking for a bigger C, which has extra t by 2 parties. Okay, now it seems fine because this C will have t by 2 plus 1 honest parties, and they are sufficient to define a bivariate polynomial of degree t plus t by 2. But the problem is that we don't know how to find a polynomial time protocol for this big star. We knew how to find a small star, the normal star, but for big star, nobody knows the polynomial time protocol. So this is where we have transited from bivariate to trivariate, and it looks like trivariate gives some features which can enable this. So let's see how. 2 more slides and then I'll be done. So instead of bivariate, now we use trivariate, And in each dimension now we have degree t plus t by 2, which means that we are already packing t by 2 plus 1 cubed number of secrets. So it's a trivariate structure, so you have complexity of n cubed, but then we are already packing order of n cubed number of secrets. The distribution of the shares happen in a very intuitive way, just like bivariate. So now every party will actually receive 3 bivariates from the trivariate polynomial. Okay, so you can think of the cube, and then I guess you can just imagine in your head how it happens. And if you look at two parties pairwise, they will share 6 univariate polynomials, 2 from each bivariate. Okay, and those are the things they are going to do pairwise checks on. And you construct a graph, the same consistency graph, in a very similar way based on the okays and not okays. Now here is the magical observation. If you see two parties with sufficiently high degree, for instance, each party has degree 3t plus t by 2 plus 1, sufficiently big degree, then what can we conclude is the following, that they have many number of common neighbors. So each of them has degree 3t plus t by 2 plus 1, and total number of parties is 4t plus 1. So they have at least 3t plus 1 common neighbors. And what this says for our case is that they actually, I mean, from this common neighbors, 3t plus 1 common neighbors, they essentially are connected. They are okay with each other. They are consistent with each other. That is because you see, I mean, between those two parties, 6 univariate polynomials needs to be verified, whether they are same or not. And those univariate polynomials are same, they are checked via these common neighbors. In this set of common neighbors, 3t plus 1 common neighbors, you have at least 2t plus 1 honest parties who have confirmed that these two parties' univariate polynomials are actually same. They share the same points. So that is the reason we have this very nice transitivity property between the two nodes which have high enough degree. Okay, so this is something that is observed by this work, Applebaum and Castron, and this we use in the following way. Okay, so right now for binding we require the following, that we in the graph, in the consistency graph, either we look for sufficient number of parties who have sufficiently large degree, and the large degree is nothing but this 3t plus t by 2 plus 1, that's what I mean by sufficiently large degree. And if you have sufficiently many nodes who have this large degree, then we are fine. And we call that graph as a dense graph, right? So in the dense graph, you have many number of nodes, sufficiently many number of nodes which has sufficiently big degree, then we are fine. Otherwise, if there is no such graph found, then we actually show how to find out a big star in polynomial time, okay, which was not known earlier. And what is common between these two structures in the graph? So both of them are graph structures, and I mean, the first condition, whether a graph is dense or not, that can be done in polynomial time. You just find out the degrees and just check if you have sufficient parties with these degrees. Right? So what is common between both the structures is that both of them actually imply a clique of t plus t by 2 plus 1 honest parties. And now these set of parties are sufficient to define a trivariate polynomial of degree t plus t by 2 in all dimensions, x, y, and z. Right? So that's all, and we have to just revise the approach of getting a constant time protocol, which is that now we pack, but then we don't use a bivariate polynomial, we are using a trivariate polynomial, and therefore we are, I mean, the degree is t plus t by 2 in all dimensions, and we are packing n cubed secrets in one trivariate structure. And then we still use batching, and together we have constant overhead weak binding AVSS, and we use that to get the first ever linear time asynchronous MPC protocol. The paper is on ePrint, and I invite you to look at the paper. And just as an open question, I think someone should prove the lower bound on asynchronous MPC protocols, whether they're really linear or can we go beyond linear? Can we make them sublinear? So that's an interesting open question.